Hey, welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
It's tips from the bar at our standing bar standard.
Standard bar.
It's either the
home base
office or misbehaving means.
I forgot to order something. Are you not ordering anything?
No,
Have
I'm
you
not.
figured out this yet?
No.
Yeah, you guys gotta get on top of that.
See, then that's like sitting back on your carbs. This would be the place to pick up the carbs.
So
Not that kind of carb.
what does the fat loss challenge entail?
Mainly, it's the number one thing is the diet. It's a diet.
It's the diet.
Not a diet. It's a change in
It's
the
a
food
change in
how you eat.
lifestyle.
Because I'm having a problem of actually not meeting enough calories. I'm trying to can't get there
I'm
to what I
sure
need to
that
get.
problem.
So yeah, it's a unique issue, but it's a good deal.
It's hard when you take a bunch of food out that you wouldn't otherwise just eat. Right? Like,
Condensed
so
stuff.
a lot of easy stuff that's around the house.
Like I can't go get my calories at Taco Bell like I used to.
Right. I can't just eat some chips and salsa.
Right.
Because the chips will mess you up.
Right.
And you can get decent salsa, but but the chips will mess you up.
Okay.
So you get rid of that. You eat lean chicken. You eat lean meat. You eat certain not a lot of non-processed food.
Mm-hmm.
So your calorie content comes way down.
Yeah.
Where I've been fighting it is like protein's way up because you're eating chicken, you're eating fish, you're doing all that this. And same thing. I mean, I think we both started with probably close to 2,900 calories is what you put in front of us. I'm like, I'm not going there.
For a day. Wait.
Per day, yeah.
That's
But
whoa.
But it's based on where you are, and
Yeah.
then
And then
it
it
settles
goes
I don't want
on
to give too much of this away.
Right.
So, but
no,
no,
but I'm
it's-
saying, but I mean, it's like push on the front
Yeah.
side and then start backing out.
But it's really
But it's also there's supposed to be a lot of work out,
Yeah.
stuff.
Right.
It's good.
So
So far, it's
Sounds
good. I think we're both doing well. So
yeah, I'm down. I feel great. That's the
Yeah.
other thing. Sometimes when you diet, you make massive changes. You
I feel like
get
crap.
lethargy.
I got a buddy that's
headaches.
I've
or
got a
whatever it is.
buddy that's doing this keto deal.
Yeah.
Oh
He's
yeah.
trying to do like the keto diet or whatever it is. And
You just leaned out
it's
like
like
a picture. I
and
tried to
like-
move the computer closer to you. Where'd Kurt go?
And for like 2 weeks, they call it the keto flu in there because everybody gets it. They say, and we just
Is
feel
it like
absolutely-
cleansing
Oh.
toxins out or something?
No,
No.
it's whatever. Their excuse for being able to say that it's something that people get feel absolutely miserable. They're dragging. They don't have energy, and then all of a sudden their body adapts. I think it's an adapting. I think the body adapts to that kind of incoming fuel.
Sure.
And it takes 2 weeks to make that change, is what I'm guessing. I don't know. I could be completely talking out my rear, but
Maybe your withdrawal from the terrible food that you've been eating.
Well, that one is pretty.
but
heavily sort of-
because that I should have had
caveman
that, and I
diet.
didn't have that.
I mean, it's if I remember the keto, it's
Paleo
again,
thing?
paleo. It's a lot more like paleo.
Yeah.
You have the
But it's also
But it's like no
massive
carbs.
heavy workout, right? I mean,
and it's
it's
heavy
short
fats.
bursts of real
It's-
heavy
it's-
weights
it's
and
heavy
things like
fats.
that.
It's
Intense
heavy.
work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is heavy fats.
It's heavy fats.
Yeah. So yeah, I think everything's going to have. I think that's what's interesting about the start of this is you're not really giving up like any one area of food except like that.
Yeah, my wife has been
great.
working on different things for a few years, and the hard thing for her was she was freaking out. Like, wait, I have to eat carbs.
Yeah,
I have to eat
Right,
carbs.
that was
What do I
like-
do? I don't do.
My body actually doesn't like a lot of carbs. I mean, like if I eat I should say dense carbs, like especially noodles.
Yeah.
Like I can't eat
do.
noodles.
Have you been able to find the Ezekiel 4.9 noodles?
I don't look for anything.
Oh, Ezekiel noodles, huh?
They've supposedly they've
I'm
got
gonna be buying
noodles.
some
there.
Ezekiel bread just because
It's good.
lacks the preservatives. and
Yeah,
that's
I
gonna
actually
be
really like it.
a lot
It doesn't
better.
have any flour either. It's really good.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it.
I just haven't eaten bread.
I just
had that pretzel.
I did get Ezekiel English muffins.
Ezekiel,
That was
those
yeah.
muffins.
I
Ezekiel
told that
4.9
cinnamon
noodles.
raisin bread's the way to go. I'm gonna get some for the
I'm
office.
not doing the raisins, but I will.
Can't do the raisins?
Yeah.
Can't do raisins?
I'm not raisin.
No.
Oh, all right.
I don't really care for it. So
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, but it's but I'll tell you the bread is pretty good. Actually.
Is it?
Yeah, I enjoy it.
Just have Mendes.
My kids
that
like it
store to
too.
find it.
My
Yeah.
kids eat it. Oh, they tolerate it. So,
They tolerate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Making big batches of stuff that works. Like I
Yeah.
made a big stir fry of like portobello mushrooms and green peppers and green beans and spinach and stuff. Just whatever fit.
I did a great deal the other day. We did zucchini and Brussels sprouts and rice, and it was just fantastic.
Yeah.
You
So like
feel
make a
better
big
when
amount.
you feel better, right?
Yeah, you make a
feel
big
better
amount.
when
You
eat
take it
vegetables,
like
fruits.
3 or 4 meals
Yeah.
worth.
Yeah.
And then I make ground turkey to add to it, and I left it out on the counter all night. So
Whoa.
that helps the diet.
I was actually telling my daughter this evening that tomorrow night we're going to have turkey burger and bacon sandwiches.
There you go.
Oh.
So with Ezekiel right on either side, or
Oh,
like
yeah.
take the English muffins and cut those into
Yeah.
those little mini
You can do
buns.
that too, yeah.
So
There you go.
Might work well.
because we got
So we're
hamburgers and all that.
that's our,
This is a
our
law.
diet update,
This is a
right?
law thing.
Not
Right?
everyone-
CCSK Law.
CCSK Law.
For your
Welcome.
health.
Thank you. Getting
So,
sidetracked with life. Imagine that.
right. But yeah, we're here. It's Tuesday night. This is our weekly gathering and chat about things legal sometimes and
Sometimes.
Sometimes
non-legal
personal
too.
related.
Had a topic come up today, though. Oh,
right.
Oh,
Yeah,
right on.
you had said
Good
you
transition.
started
Yeah.
talking to someone today, and I'm like, you are laying out a tips from the bar.
Tips from the bar. We're going to talk about some lay people and contracts. Basically, non-attorneys and how to deal with contracts. Right? And I got a
Okay.
couple different situations here. Now, there's usually, I come across about 3 different types of contracts from people who are not attorneys. One is way too simplified. It really doesn't cover everything that needs to be covered in the agreement. But that's actually probably one of the best things you can do if you're going to work without an attorney is make it simple so that you understand it.
Mm-hmm.
The next one that I come across is someone who almost thinks that they are an attorney just with the way that they try to write their own agreement. But when I read it, I say this says something completely different than what you think you're trying to say
Right.
here. It can be really difficult to do. And the third one is someone who just prints something off of LegalZoom or Rocket Lawyer or another online legal website,
Mhm.
where again, a lot of times it's not applicable to the situation that is recommended. A while ago, I had someone who I called up a bank because I have a client who was looking to do an LLC and they wanted to open up an LLC banking account. So I called the bank, say, what is required on this? Do you require an operating agreement? They said no. Operating agreement is the agreement that makes your
Really?
LLC function. They said they didn't need it. BMO Harris doesn't require one. Yeah.
Cool.
Some banks don't require the operating agreement.
Interesting.
Well, of course, the clients go in and they say, "Oh, you need an operating agreement." Okay, and so the bank prints off an operating agreement and says, "Here's a blank one for you." Now, my wonderful, I won't say who they are, but they are wonderful, wonderful people, wonderful clients because they said, "We're not signing anything until our attorney
Oh,
looks at it."
very nice.
Smart, right? So they sent it over to me. I just took a look at it and said, "One, this
this
is
was not BMO Harris.
This is not BMO Harris.
Okay,
This is a
it's just
completely
'cause you
separate
mentioned
bank. I'm not
BMO,
even
this
talking
is-
about
yeah,
what
this
the
is
bank. I'm
not
not going to
them.
name off
Right.
what the bank is, but
Right.
this is a partnership, manager managed LLC that's going to be taxed as an S corp. This was a single member managed C corp operating agreement.
So it couldn't have been more opposite.
It was just way off,
Right.
way off. And I asked him, I said, "Where did you get this?" We just printed it offline. No.
Right.
So there's a lot of situations that this can come up, and it's never bad just to cover yourself.
If you don't understand it, you
Yeah.
should probably not sign it, right?
Right.
I actually ran into one of these myself about a little over a year ago, about a year and a few months ago.
Mhm.
And I was working with another attorney at the time on one of their cases, and it was a in-home remodeling type thing, and the homeowner basically typed up a little 1-paragraph thing to modify the agreement
Oh,
Mhm.
and had him sign it. Now, there was no dates. It wasn't. I mean, there's a lot of things wrong with this,
yeah.
but and it really didn't say much of what they had intended. I mean, it was one of those things where it's like, I mean, I guess if you kind of assumed that it said what he wanted to say, you could look at it
Yeah.
and say, okay, it says that. But when you really looked at the legal wording of it, it wasn't there.
Right.
It could be challenged.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Oh no. And then now, don't get me wrong. If you are not going to hire an attorney, I would almost prefer for you and the other party to sit there and write something up, so you have something in place.
Right.
It doesn't have to sound legally.
No, it does not
to
have
be
to sound
legally
legal.
binding
No.
at all.
Not
And
at
that's
all.
why we have this, no legalese form.
No
A lot
legalese
of
thing.
people think
Completely
if it
fine.
doesn't sound legal, it won't uphold a court, which is not true.
No, 100%. You can have a
Right.
contract between the two, and you don't always have to have an attorney if you do have experience in what you're doing, and you make it simple enough,
So you can make it clear and simple.
Mhm.
clear and simple,
That's gonna be-
and have the basics of a contract. The basics of a contractor. A contract first off requires, author acceptance and consideration, right?
Flashbacks to
Yeah, right. Contracts
one all
101,
year.
where somebody has now offered you something You have accepted it, and the consideration means that you gave something up or they offered something. There was some kind of trade in some manner. And then you both sign it.
Consideration have to be?
At least the peppercorn.
Nominal.
There's you don't want to fake it. $1 usually is not good enough, but it can be something relatively small. And so it must be in consideration of something. You must have actually thought of a trade in this and made that happen.
There must be some sort of exchange.
In a normal business transaction, they're like legal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, most certainly.
This is basically if someone tries to take advantage of you. That's kind of the protection. But if you're making a contract in a normal business transaction, you likely have met all of those requirements.
Most likely. Right. So just make sure that in your contract you stated the quantity or the amount or whatever you're trading here. You said what it is. You've identified the object and what the if it's money or whatever your trading vehicles or whatever you're doing.
But you should always still call Isaac and have him overlook your contract, because he's not saying just go out and start writing your own contracts all over the place.
But people are going to do it.
People are going to do it.
Yeah.
If you're going to do it, you might as well try to do it correctly.
If you're going to go out and do it on your own, these are my recommendations. I mean, obviously, my top recommendation is just have an attorney review it, even if you do write it up yourself. So I can tell you about this stuff. But regardless, if you're going to do it on your own, make sure that you at least state the basics and then put a date on it and you both sign it.
Yeah.
Right? And if you do edits to it, that you both initial those edits. Right? I mean, there's a lot of things that you just want to at least basically follow if you're going to write it yourself. Again, but do not print something offline if you don't understand what it says or if you have any questions about it, because you might actually do so much more harm to yourself than what you think that you're doing.
Yeah, you can actually do damage and cost yourself money and cost yourself all kinds of stuff.
Oh, with not just with the other party too, but also with like the IRS. Or you sign something like your operating agreement, right?
Yeah.
If your operating agreement has qualified minimum offsets for minimum chargebacks, I mean, because you have a negative capital account and you don't understand what that says.
That sounds
okay
that sounds like
wah,
It's
okay not to know what that says.
And it's okay not to know what that says.
So you can ask an attorney, make this make sense to me.
Yes, exactly. But if you're going to enter into a partnership or an LLC with somebody else and you don't have anything in place, just write down the basic expectations of one another and the accountability if you fail to meet those expectations, and then sign it.
Yep.
At the very least, but just be careful printing stuff offline. There's my tip from the bar. Be careful printing stuff offline if you don't know what it says.
Sure. Now, I will say that that was not necessarily legal mumbo jumbo. That was business ease. So it's okay. That business ease is allowed.
That's actually more with your accountant, because that's specifically accounting.
Accountantees.
The mumbo jumbo that I was spitting off. Just about one of the most complicated part.
Absolutely.
Partnership tax rules, which is just ridiculous, and your accountant is actually the one who's going to help manage that. And I work with your accountant to help get all that stuff in place.
That's the key. That's the easy way to do it.
But it's trying to be complicated for the purpose of, if you don't understand these words, don't just sign the agreement.
Stop and think for a second what you're doing.
Right.
Absolutely.
And if the other side has an attorney and you don't, don't.
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I would be extra careful to do it.
A lot of times people think, well, the attorney's going to have the best interest of everybody
No.
involved, because they want to see. It's not the case.
Yep.
The attorney represents the person who hired.
And they represent their best interest. So if their best interest is to have more money going their way or have a clause in there that allows them an out and not you, that can be in there that you don't even know about.
Yep. Battle of the Forms.
Yes.
So it's something that it happens quite a bit, and in fact we were talking about the settlement agreement in the office today that I'm writing, and the first question is, do I really need to write it? And the answer was yes. We want to make sure that what everybody's agreed to and seems really happy about now is still able to be enforced 2 years from now. So it's again, you're not living in the moment. You're living in the moment to take care of moments down the road. So we were talking to someone else. We heard a conversation where there's some exchange going on, and suddenly this is what started the conversation is they want to draft this agreement or this sale or whatever the heck they're even trying to call it, because it didn't sound like it even started that way.
Nope.
And now all of a sudden the person's like, I didn't feel right about where this was going, and that's the right feeling to have. So you don't feel pressured into signing, and I think sometimes we want to buy something, or we want to, get something, or we don't want to tick somebody off. But as I said, you can hurt yourself in the long run. So you don't want to do that.
And that's sometimes the harder part about being a lawyer, right? I always tell my clients, like, we hope for the best, but we have to plan for the worst. Right. Like, I know right now you don't want to talk about the bad things that could happen, but in the future we got to think, how can we protect you? What does this look like? What does this actually mean?
Right. That's our job. That's why you come to us, to look out for.
You don't want to be arguing over this stuff when there's the heat of passion. You want to hash this out up front when things are good.
Yep. Preventative measures are always the best way to go about it.
Yep.
Clearly lay out your expectations, and then the accountability if someone fails to meet those expectations, so that you're not saying, no, I thought you were supposed to do this.
Let's look at the contract.
Yeah, just look at the contract.
Easier.
Oh, I was supposed to do this. I failed to do this. Oh, here's the consequences of those actions. And you just resolve that at that point. Or you can try to fight that out with lawyers in court.
For a lot more money. That's the expensive way to do it, right? You're talking serious.
Preventative, like a sunburn, just put on the sunscreen instead of having to deal with it afterwards. Because it's a lot uglier.
We were talking about something else today where someone wanted to put in a contract something that to protect their own interest, but it was probably a reach as to whether it was something that would hold up in court.
Yeah.
But again, and as we talked about, how do you frame it in such a way that you're not saying something that's not legal,
right?
But it goes back to what you said. Someone's going to write an agreement in their own favor, not in the world's favor.
Right.
Yeah. So you can say some things in a contract that may or may not hold up in court, but if it prevents someone from pursuing it, again, as long as it's not egregious or something completely out of hand, sometimes people will do that. So it's contracts have to be written from some angle. I don't know that I've ever seen like ultimately neutral contracts. It can't be. Someone's writing it with a bias, by design.
Yeah, I've read a lot of contracts. I'm trying to think. I've never seen one that. It's rare that I come across one that is really fair. In terms of the person who wrote it originally was fair in the way that the drafters of it almost intend for it to be a negotiation.
Yeah.
Right.
They walk in there specifically pushing the bounds of these particular contractual terms, putting the risk on you or pushing it off this burden or requiring certain things that you do not have to agree to. And it's almost assumed that you will push back. Otherwise, you just want to accept to it. It can cause you problems later down the road.
When I used to do concert promotion, and you'd read band contracts, which was their, the writer that says, okay, if we come play a show, here's all the requirements that we need, and some of them are legitimate, and some of them are for safety, but some of them, there's the famous one about the dressing room had no green M&Ms in or something.
Right, I was going to say.
Well, there was a band I worked with that used to put in. They had like one spot where they put in a weird request. Mm-hmm. And it was because they were working with a lot of people that didn't do, like churches and things. They didn't do a lot of concert promotion, but they wanted to make sure they read the contract. So like they said at times they'd put in like clown shoes, size 12 clown shoes, and just in hopes that someone would say, "Do you really need the 12 size clown shoes?"
Right.
No, we don't. But we wanted to make sure you're reading it, and again, renegotiate it.
There you go.
Unless everybody just has the size 12 set of clown shoes sitting around and you just toss them in the dressing room and you're
Why
good.
not?
But
who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I remember some of the things that
nice shoes.
Some of the things that you'd have to contend with in terms of hotel space, parking spaces, electrical requirements, and ceiling heights. Is actually the one band I worked with didn't even know their ceiling height. I had the right ceiling height and they had the wrong one in their equipment. So like they went to put up the equipment and it went right into the ceiling and they're like, "What? My ceiling is the right height. What size is your support beam?" And they're, "Oh, wait, we're off by 3 feet."
Huh.
So, it was. Again, I had read the contract and I measured everything, so I know this was pre me as attorney. But yeah, so those are the things you got to do to protect yourself, because again, they could have gone crazy because it was going to mess up their light show right? Because this wasn't going to work the way it was supposed to work. And they're always on a tight schedule, and they just want things to work great.
And I think that's where this comes up a lot. Within business, people want to get things done.
Right.
They feel like bringing in lawyers slows down the process, complicates the process, which can.
And it most certainly can slow it down.
But if you're going to protect yourself, then you probably should. It doesn't hurt to have someone review it, right?
A couple of days with an attorney is a lot shorter than a couple of months in court.
Yeah.
Or even trying to get to court in a couple of months. So it's that whole.
There's a lot of businesses that try to do this. I've seen a lot. This happens in the construction business. You see a lot where they have these contracts that they have people sign. That's like name and address, and then everything's handwritten that's going to be done, and then just sign at the bottom. And so it's that's a little sketchy. Some on the other hand, I've seen and I've actually worked for companies that had their contracts prepared by an attorney. It's got all the wording they needed on the back. It's got the wording. There's a spot to put in specific. This is what we're doing. These are the materials we're going to need and labor. So you got a little bit of that. But some of that, the point to all that is to say that if you're a business that relies on contracts on a regular basis, there's typically going to be repeatable use type things. So you can have a very good contract drawn up and then do that once, and then it saves you tons going forward because you can use it a lot.
Yeah. No, that's solid. Might make a transition here into a question that was asked by Dwight.
By who?
Dwight Stowers.
Cool.
Yeah.
And Hayden Duffy, one of my old high school friends.
Awesome.
I guess we're not friends now.
Okay.
Old high school friends.
What's the question?
All right. Which is better, S Corp or a C Corp?
That depends.
Oh, it depends. And it most certainly does, especially with the new tax bill.
Right.
So, traditionally, corporation is a corporation. You go to the Indiana Secretary of State and say, hey, I want a corporation. And they give you one. Right? You pay your money, they give you a corporation. Then you go up to the IRS, the federal level, and you can submit to be taxed in a different way, either under subchapter S or subchapter C. Right? And that right there is that you're going to default subchapter C with double taxation. It means you're taxed when the money comes into the corporation and you're taxed again when it goes to the shareholders. Or you can file an election with the IRS to say, hey, I want my corporation to be under S chapter, an S Corp. And I want it to be considered pass-through, which means that money goes through the corporation into the shareholders with only being taxed once at the shareholder level. Right? So you're avoiding that double taxation. However, there's certain requirements with having an S Corp.
I was going to say, so why doesn't everyone do an S Corp?
Yeah. There's 4 big requirements. 1, you have to have under 100 shareholders. They must all be individual people. Not other businesses. You can't have an LLC be the owner or another corporation be the owner. They all have to be United States residents. So you can't have somebody who's a foreign
citizen.
Basically a foreign citizen coming in and taking ownership over that. And you can't have multiple classes of stock. Sometimes you hear about A shares and B shares or C shares or preferred stock. Who get paid out first. You can't have any of that. It's one class of stock. You can't have voting and non-voting, but you can't have different priorities in terms of who gets paid first with that stock. If you meet those 4 requirements, you can be an S Corp. At that point, you get that one level of taxation. Now, the complication comes in with the new tax bill, where C Corps have now a lower tax rate down to 21%. And it's starting to look more attractive of maybe we do step over to a C Corp. Previously, you really wouldn't step over to C Corp unless you were a bigger company with a lot of employees and you got certain employee benefits that you would get through a C Corp.
Or you really love meetings.
You really love meetings.
And you love to document your meetings.
Oh, just paperwork and bureaucracy, talking about having your bylaws say specific notice requirements, and you send out the notice, and then once the notice is completed, then have your shareholder meetings, whether that's special, regular, or annual, getting all of that, and then getting your meeting minutes down, and then doing corporate resolution on top of that, let alone just to pass one particular agreement. But then you got to do the agreement. So whole levels of bureaucracy that you want to do. Public corporations, if you want to be publicly traded, you got to be a C Corp, right? There are reasons to be a C Corp.
Well, a nonprofit. It's structured a lot like a C. It's called a nonprofit corp, but in Indiana, it's a C Corp, basically.
Right. But hopefully, and you don't have to, but as a nonprofit, you can then file with the IRS to say, instead of subchapter S or subchapter C, I want to go under Chapter 501c3 and be tax exempt.
Yeah.
You can make that election if you have filed.
Can I do that as an individual? Because I'd really like to do that as an individual.
They would not let you do that as an
You
individual.
can try. You can always apply.
You can always apply.
They love that. I mean, they have nothing better to do.
Right. They're
Yeah,
better than just get
bogus
random applications for nothing, right?
With the IRS losing people and money and new tax bill coming around, they'd love to just spend their time on that kind of stuff.
Sweet.
So yeah, the C Corp and S Corp, ultimate answer is it depends on your business and where you're at. But one of the biggest things that I'm going to request is get your accountant involved with this as well. Because that election is through the IRS specifically for tax purposes. It's how you're taxed, which means that as the attorney, I want to work with your accountant to make sure your agreements line up with your taxation status.
Now, here's a question that might not have been answered with this, but if you start out a business, can you start as an subchapter S and then change to subchapter C later on as your business grows?
Most certainly.
So it might be a good idea if you're just getting started to say, you know what, we're going to start this way, and then if we do decide to expand, we're going to go ahead rather than just jumping into the C. Say, I'm going to get real big, I'm going to jump into the C.
A great way to start is actually start off as an LLC.
There you go.
Because to just
Now, who do we know that has done that?
let me think. Wait a second.
That's
I think we've done that.
Yes, I
Start
knew it.
off as an LLC, and your
We're
LLC.
still there.
We're still there.
We're still
We're still in that, and we actually will be for a while because now this all started back in the 1980s during the first tax reform. When during the 1980s, two things happened. One, they invented LLCs, and two, they did the first tax reform, or they did the last tax reform. Well, when they did that tax reform, they did not contemplate LLCs. And so your LLC must have been taxed either as a partnership or sole member if it's just one person, but partnership is multiple people, or you can make the election of the S Corp, and you still can do that as an LLC. So what's a great way to do it is to be an LLC, and then you can convert for a real cheap price, $30. You can convert with Indiana Secretary of State, say, I no longer want to be an LLC, I want to be a corporation.
Right.
Or you could just remain an LLC and tax yourself as an S Corp. Until you get to a certain size, if you want to go public and you want to be a C Corp, then you can convert over to that, and it's really easy to do. But in the meantime, if you're just starting out, start off as an LLC because you can tax yourself as an S Corp anyway through that LLC style.
Good ideas.
Well, maybe
Good things to
in
think
the
about.
coming weeks we can maybe just take bites into this tax thing because I know I've gotten involved in a number of conversations about it, and there's what's out there and that's sort of being bantied about for political purposes, but then there's some real things, and I think one of the things that's been glossed over, and I ended up accidentally in a conversation about this yesterday, is that somebody says, well, how does the C Corp or the corporate tax help somebody other than GM and GE and Lilly and all these things? I'm like, well, there's a lot of C Corps, there's a lot of businesses, small businesses, car washes, whatever this place is called, a winery. How not asking how they're structured.
It's a winery.
But that was a big thing for them too because places like GE and GM can hide all their income, so they end up with a very low income threshold, and then you're paying 35% on a very low number. Right. And so relatively speaking, it doesn't look like they're paying their fair share. But the person who has a C Corp, small business, who has 10, 15, 20 employees, and they can't bury that income because they have to bring it through to run the business and pay people. Right. They were having to pay that at 35%. So that's a substantial fix for those people. And then the double hit of having to pay it on the dividends too for the people that got paid out. So it was one of those things where I think the people who passed it did a really bad job of really getting into why it was good, and they let sort of the narrative be driven by the big sort of overarching statements of, you're helping the rich. Well, there's a whole lot of people who aren't rich who are going to benefit from a 14% drop in their business tax rate. So
it was built on the idea of the trickle-down effect, which I'm not going to go into the effectiveness of a trickle-down effect, but saying that if we give these breaks that the company will.
But again, I don't think it's trickle-down when it's one guy at the
again, I'm not going to go into the specifics.
But again, I think
it looked like the personal income tax rates were lower too.
They split them, and they did lower the top end, and then there's a couple in the middle.
Because it looks like some of them look like they're down to like 10, 12%.
In fact, there is a 10 and a 12. So there's a 10 and there's a 12, and then it jumps up from there, and then it tops out at 35. So that's down 4+% because they also took off.
Because I was looking at my wife and I's situation, and I was thinking, man, this is going to be great because our taxes are going to go down just from the standpoint of where our bracket is lower compared to what it was before.
Yeah. So. Well, and your deduction's going up.
The individual deduction.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. And there's something with kids. I don't know. I wouldn't look into it more because there's the child deduction, I think, is going up too. There's some different things I thought I heard.
That doubled, and then so there's a number of
529 plan is now going to be possibly allowed for K through 12 in private schools.
Oh, really?
But you
see now they used to have other plans that are specifically they're called Coverdell savings accounts that they used to do for high school through 12. So it's probably a good idea that they just put everything into one ball and just say.
Part of that is again that simplification term rather than having 13 different ways to say basically the same thing. I think kind of getting rid of some of the deductions that again got a lot of press. Just making a bigger lump sum deduction.
But one of the big struggles there is that a lot of states gave either credits or deductions for people who put money into the 529. Yeah. If suddenly you're now allowing that for K through 12, that's a big chunk of state revenue that might not be realized anymore if you have the income tax in that state.
Maybe.
And so
most of the state stuff on that was minimal. It was basically like 3 to 5% of what you put in was written off or whatever. So,
I mean, it very states,
it
will. It's going to be. There's a lot that's still up in the air with it. And then I don't know.
I actually like the idea of that being used as K through 12 because sometimes you don't. When I was doing financial planning, I was talking to people that their kids were just born, and it's like we can start putting money away, but what if we get $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in there, and then this kid's just not going to go. Right. They had you can switch beneficiaries in there, and you can do things like that to cover for it. But at the same time, it's, if you can then say, look, well, we saved up, and we're, 10th grade, and got to pay for some school stuff. You might as well. It actually might benefit the schools because I know a lot of the schools around here are having trouble with people not paying some of the fees and stuff that they're doing. So if they've got money in there that they can use instead, you never know, it might help out. So but it's interesting.
One of the other little pops that was one of the more confusing things that people have trouble keeping straight is the gift exemption. That actually goes to 15,000 now. But there's a lot of people that still think it's 10. It's like, I can only give away 10.
Whatever they remember is like 10. It was 12 and 13.
But it goes to 15. It's moving for the first time in
it's been a while.
Probably several years. Yeah, I know it was 14 for a long time. I think it was actually when they codified the estate numbers a few years ago. There was a tax reform right at the end of, actually at the beginning of 13. It should have been at the end of 12. I think that's when they stuck it at 14. So yeah, there's a few things. The estate tax doubled. Exemption doubled. So it's like $11.2 million.
Sheesh.
So yeah, lots of little things. But we can dig into it for maybe just like a little. Each of us will take a piece of it and maybe do a quick little.
Depreciation is probably the next thing I want to look into.
That'd be great. Let's do that next week.
Oh,
why not?
No.
You want me just? Oh yeah, look at that. You want me to just dig into the depreciation?
Talk about a wah.
Yeah, right.
No, but that's a big business thing. But yeah, there's a big move on that. The little read that I read of it, there's a big shift in that. It takes a huge burden off of people who are kind of caught in that trap. Once you're in it, it can be a headache for go back to your accountant. Yeah, you got to keep a whole lot of stuff straight. So anyway,
accountants are going to have a fun couple of years.
So that'll be our little assignment. We'll take on the tax code in the course of the next few months.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
You can find us at ccsklaw.com. Give us a call.
That's us.
Shoot us a message.
Yeah. So thank you.
Let us know if you have more questions.
Yes. Always in the box. We appreciate the questions.
So we have
hopefully we got Dwight's Dwight a little bit something to think about. Now if we probably answered his question because he couldn't.
Yeah, right.
Well, you don't know what his situation is, but in general, he's got a frame of work to go from, and he knows who to contact if he has questions.
There you go.
Yeah, free consultations.
There you go.
Whether you got a contract you're trying to write yourself, or whether you just have questions about this kind of S corps and C corp stuff, Just talk. I said, free consultation. Just give me a chat.
Yep. You can find us at ccskaw.com, and you can find us here on Tuesday nights right here on Facebook at 6:30.
See you next week.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Hang on, I'm on the wrong page. I was updating the scores. No, I have to go back and forth.
Let's look at the sports scores.
No, it's this darn Facebook thing. I can't tag people on the one page.